What's going on, everybody? Nick here. Figured I'd show you what's been going on lately with me and some of the things I've been doing, and some of the things that have happened since I've started racing. And actually, it's been going all right. I actually pulled a third out the hobby town in Johnson City in the Sportsman, but it was a decent fight. But I ended up cooking a motor because of it. And it was one of the motors that I put together from scratch, from parts that I bought online a long time ago. And I bought enough parts to fully build a Dynamite .21. It did not all come together. Every bit of it was just individually bagged, I mean, with everything. But I figured I would show what I had done to this engine and what this engine has done, and how many races it's been through, and countless practice days and things like that. And I'm telling you guys, I wasn't very easy on this engine at all. I was tuning all over the place on it, and you'll understand why, because of the way I modded it and everything. And this was just an experiment for me to be able to try to understand really what is going on in the nitro engines, and to see what I was capable of. And so this motor right here represents, I guess, the DIY out there, and how far you can push something if you take enough time and listen to enough people and just try some stuff that's out of the box. I never expected this engine to do what it has done, and I never expected it to last as long as it did, especially with it being overheated more than once. And the condition that it's in right now is due to hitting 400 degrees on the racetrack. This motor come off the track pinging. I was expecting it was losing pinch and compression. And this motor in the final race that I did, where I actually got the third, I barely made it around the racetrack for the last lap. It was pinging, and it was just gone. But at the beginning of the race, the motor felt great. And maybe it was something that I did, tuning. The weather was all over the place. It was in the sun, then in the shade, cloudy. So we were having temperatures jumping all over the place. I turned the motor up because it had enough runtime and everything on it to see kind of what it would do. And I'm actually pretty proud of what this engine has done. Especially considering it's an RTR engine, not necessarily known for the best quality, but I'm proud of what it did, and I'm proud of what this motor's taught me, and everything in between. So I went from day one. This motor's run nothing but bones brew. It got broke in on 20% with a higher oil content. I think I was around like a 10 or 11 with an additive in the fuel. And then this motor saw a couple track days and monitoring and everything, and I had some issues with tuning. But it was something that I was willing to try to overcome. Even though this motor is dead, she will live again. And just primarily because it's my motor. I built it, and it's all just an experiment, but I wanted to show everybody what exactly happened to this engine, and because it hit 400 degrees and it did not lock up. It did not blow a rod. When I took it off the track, there was oil all over the front bearing, so I'm pretty sure I blew a seal on the front bearing. So I'm just going to go over a couple things that I did to this engine. I've never quite seen a Dynamite RTR pushed as far as this. And like I said, I never expected this engine to really become of anything, maybe other than just throw it in a car and have a good time in the yard or something like that. But I ended up racing it. And this motor has went full practice days. Just run over and over again, lap after lap, more than a few times. This motor got a 4th, a 9th, and the 9th was a bump out of the B main into the A main with 12 cars. It wasn't doing the best at that point. It was a little boggy on the bottom, but I was able to tune past that, and I was pretty proud of that considering the level of competition that was there. So, and then now her final showing, she pulled a third. And she was not happy when she came off the track. So I think I overdone it. The track was fantastic. It was brand new. DMJ Racing completely redid the track in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I want to say thanks to those guys for providing us a race surface. And the guy that helped build the track also does the P&B track. So, you know, it had some pretty decent jumps on it, and I showed up with no practice whatsoever. 3 qualifying heats, 5 minutes, and then a 15-minute main. Now, the 9th place was a 20-minute main, and multiple, you know, pit stops. I would also like to thank Gunpowder Nitro and his son Way a lot, having me a pit space available and just hanging out with me and everything, and us all just, you know, running our cars and having a good time and representing DMJ Racing. So really a thanks to those guys, because they pitted for me for this 3rd place, so this trophy is partially theirs as well. And that was 2 pit stops. I probably could have came in 1 less, but I wanted to make sure I could make the distance, and with the motor just no power, I didn't really know how we were going to turn out, but we ended up bringing something home. And to be honest, it's actually my first ever trophy in Nitro Racing, and I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest with you. But we'll get into this and what I did to this engine to push it as far as I did. And there could have been multiple reasons of why it did what it did, but I've never seen anybody come off the racetrack at around 400 degrees. I did a tap test with my hand on the motor when it came off the track, and it was extremely hot, almost to the point it burnt me immediately. I almost got a cooling head in my hand here a little bit. I didn't get it much, but it's hard to come through on camera. But anyways, it just singed me a little bit. But she really came off the track hot. I put the temperature gun on it a few times and was surprised at how hot it was. I thought my temperature gun was wrong, but it apparently wasn't. So the motor still had compression when it came off, but when I did the cold test of holding it by the flywheel and everything, she held for barely any time and then just fell right over. So I've never quite seen the damage that I see in this engine, and when I opened it up, I thought it was going to be way worse than it actually was. But it's basically this engine, your RTR, you know, low C8 buggy. So we'll get into this. We'll start with we'll start with the crankcase. So I took this crankcase and I bored it. I bored it out to fit a Novarossi carburetor. Now, when I measured the stock carburetor on this engine, it would be somewhere around 6 to 6.5, and it would choke down in the carburetor. There was no sort of insert. So I bored it out to give it the Nova carb, and then tune it on there. So that worked out pretty good. I thought that it tuned pretty well, considering that the carburetor was never supposed to go on it, and now I could change my Venturis to different sizes. I started with a 7, and then I wanted to try a 6.5 to see how it felt. It felt pretty good either way, but the front bearing doesn't look bad, but that seal, when I pressure tested it, was just blowing all over the place. So this motor could have ran lean because of the front bearing. It rotates fine and everything, but the seal is just, I mean, it's not melted or anything, which I was surprised it didn't melt because of the temperatures that it reached. So I'm going to put a set of bearings in this and then see where we're at. The crank here came out like, you know, just fine. So the other mod that I did was, this is actually a .28 crank out of the dynamite .28s out of the RTRs. I had both cranks, so this one had more windowing in it, and it was lighter compared to the .21 crank. So I changed it out, and it did well. I'm pretty pleased. It fit right in there, no problem. So all you guys that have had a crank issue with the pin here breaking completely off, I've seen that, and I mean, this motor has a hollow crank pin. And it lasted. It overheated, you know, and everything, and it seems to be fine. I'm not finding too much wear on it, and as you can see, there's no corrosion or anything like that on it. And so I'm going to rerun this, but I'm going to check a few more things before I do. But this is just an inspection as soon as I tore it apart. And you see, no really anything went through it. But this Dynamite .21 is also backplated, so that's another mod. The other mod that I did was I took a P5 top end and combustion chamber, which went to a turbo glow plug with the seal, and actually put it on top of this engine. And it fit right on there. The bores are almost identical. And then I shimmed it to the original depth on the combustion chamber. So here's the original. Now these .21s, they have a removable combustion chamber. So we went from this to the P5, which is actually milled out and takes this. So this is the combustion chamber stock on it, and I just ran it at the same height in the block. I made it all the way down to a ProTech 4. And this motor actually got so hot, it's hard to pick it up, but it got so hot, actually the plug started melting. And black stuff started coming out around the main pin here. But the plug still worked whenever I shut the motor off. And there's a shot of the coil in there. So the coil didn't drop down in there, which is always good. But it didn't fry it. So here's where I found most of the damage. See if I can do this with one hand. And I actually have a replacement here. And as you can see, the differences in color. Get the exhaust here. But the rod seems to be fine. The wrist pin side of it looks a little dark up in there. So I'm just going to change everything out. But I also did some practice fanging on here, just to see what it would take in order to actually put some fangs in there. Just experimenting, really. But I thought I did an okay job. I know it probably didn't do too much, maybe help with atomization and point the airflow. But here's this stock versus where I modded it. I lowered the floor just a little bit on here, and then these here, open it up just a little bit, not much, and then some more fang work. And you actually, I don't know if it's from the heat or from the fuel, but the fangs here actually are a little bit darker on the transfers up in here. You can see the amount of heat that went through the exhaust here, but also I'll show you the pinch. So that one's in there, and that one's in there. So from what I read and stuff, these motors lose pinch pretty quick, so you can't really expect them to last that long. But as you can see, it won't push out the top, but I think there may be another reason for that. But it won't come all the way out. But you can tell there's a major difference between new and fried. But I'll let you see the piston. You can see from the piston color that there's been quite a bit of heat run through there. And this motor was running on 30% every time it was on the racetrack. I didn't have any pre-ignition that I could tell of, even though it got that hot. Show you what the new one looks like. So, but the rod, if you look down, see how dark it is down in there? Let's see if I can get a light in there. So it didn't lock up, but it's definitely dark. And usually the underside of the piston is where a lot of heat is. So, but this is going to go in now. I may mod this just a little bit, but most of the damage that I saw was actually not too much grooving or anything in the cylinder itself, but the little area that is above the piston and below the combustion chamber literally melted the chrome lining off of the cylinder in that little bitty part of the area. And I'm just showing you that there's not that many grooves or anything in there, but I really hope I can show you here. But let's see. Come on. I can quit shaking. It's hard to see, but there's actually a dark spot above the piston, and I'll tell you that you can actually see where stuff's starting to flake off, and it's mostly on the exhaust side. Maybe I can shove it in here. See that blue line? Right there. Like, I can catch my fingernail on that. I'll keep rolling away. So she melted, and it actually got to the point where it melted off the chrome lining of the cylinder. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to put it back together. I doubt I'll do another racing with it, but this motor had plenty of power. I was actually surprised at how much it had compared to some of the other people on the racetrack. But whenever it started building up in temperature as the motor got some age on it, I believe that it had some blow by, and just as it would get hot, it would start fading in power. But I'm proud of it. It did what it needed to do. It wasn't expected to live as long, and I raced it a lot harder and a lot longer than I expected to. I'll show you the combustion chamber that came out of it. So this head bolts right on using the stock bolts from the RTR. So if you have a P5 top end with a turbo plug, if you do it correctly with your shimming, you can bolt it right onto it, and it will run. So there's that. And I just want to say thanks to everybody and all the encouragement. It was nice to be able to go out to the track and just be able to hang out and race and get down. I'm not sure exactly what motor I want to pull out. I got some stuff that I might try to do, but I'm going to re-bearing this. I'm looking at a couple engines that I may do. I don't know if I feel like breaking in anything right now, so I may just put something used in it until further notice. But appreciate everything, guys. Always stay humble, and I'll see you around.